On this edition of Gameball College Kickoff. First part of the debate, we're going to be doing a recap of what happened last week. Did Wisconsin blowout win prove that they belong in the college football playoff? How did Auburn win over Georgia prove themselves? Are they a legit threat to dethrone Alabama and possibly get to the SEC championship game? How will Oklahoma fare out against TCU? Will Baker Mayfield lead the way once again? And with the dominant win over Notre Dame, is the U really back? Did they really get their swagger back? We'll talk about that. Also, in the second topic, we'll talk about the college football playoff rankings that recently came out. And for the third topic, we're going to be talking about upcoming matchups. So let's get started. Don't go anywhere. Right here, only on Gameball College Kickoff Podcast starts now. What's happening, everyone? Welcome to Gameball NFL Ends on Podcast, where the football season never ends. I'm your host, Mike O'Reilly.
I'm Luke Hartnett.
And we're going to do a recap of what happened week 11. And also, we're going to do playoff football rankings that recently came out. And also, we're going to predict and talk about this upcoming week matchups in week 12. So let's get started. With the first game that we're going to recap, Wisconsin versus Iowa in Wisconsin. Wisconsin won on a blowout 38-14. Nathan Stanley, 8 of 24, 41 yards, 1 INT. James Butler, 8 rushes for 30 yards. Wow. Nick Easley, 2 receptions for 19 yards. Total offense, 66 yards with only 5 first downs. Time of possession, 21 minutes, 33 seconds with 3 turnovers. Defense, 2 sacks, 2 INTs for touchdowns. Alex Hornibrook, 11 of 18 for a $135, 2 touchdowns with 3 interceptions. Ouch. Jonathan Taylor, 29 rushes, a $157. Danny Davis III, 4 catches, 74 yards. Total offense, 382 yards with 18 first downs. Time possession, 38 minutes, 27 seconds with 4 turnovers. Defense, 4 sacks, 1 INT, 2 fumble, 1 fumble return for a touchdown. How did Wisconsin be able to pull off this blowout win, and what you think about the game?
You pretty much covered it in the stats. They had the ball for almost 2-1. Iowa just barely over 20 minutes of time of possession and the turnovers.
Yep. Iowa did not come to play against Wisconsin. I guess they was coming off a blowout win over Ohio State. They got confidence go up, and it comes to show you sometimes a blowout win over a good team could be a hangover. And Iowa, they did not score an offensive touchdown. I mean, look at the yardage. The passing yards was terrible. 8 for 24 for 41 yards. 41 yards, he was held in check. And 8 rushes for 30 yards. Wow. That was bad. The Iowa Hawkeyes looked sad against Wisconsin. Real sad. It was discouraging to watch that game in a way, but they got to play better if they want to be able to play a good team in a bowl game. So they have to throw this game away, toss it out, learn from their mistakes, and bury and move on. For Wisconsin, they just keep rolling and dominating. But the quarterback has to do a better job of looking at his reads in the passing game, go to his progressions, because he threw 2 pick sixes that could have been avoidable with the defensive backs that basically stared him down. And he needs to get better in that area, Overall, the running game was great. The defense is playing good. I think Wisconsin is being overlooked by the other teams. If Wisconsin continues to win and win out the Big Ten, my opinion, they should be in the college football playoff. No ifs, ands, or buts. All right, next matchup we're going to get into Georgia versus Alabama. Alabama will win the score of, Auburn, I rephrase, not Alabama, Auburn will win the score of 40-17 over Georgia. Jake Fromm, 13 of 28, 184 yards and a TD. Nick Chubb, 11 rushes for 27 yards. Javon Rims, 3 catches, 96 yards. Total offense, 230 yards with 13 first downs. Time of possession, 26 minutes, 54 seconds with 1 turnover. Defense, 2 sacks. That's unlike Georgia's defense. Auburn, Jared Stidham, 16 of 23, 214 yards, 3 TDs. Kerryon Johnson, 32 rushes, 167 yards. Kerryon Johnson, 2 catches, 66 yards and 1 TD. Total offense, 488 yards with 25 first downs. Time of possession, 33 minutes, 6 seconds with 0 turnovers, 4 sacks, and 1 forced fumble. So what do you think about that game?
Even though I picked Georgia to win, I'm really not surprised that Auburn was able to pull it off. I think we're all, I think even Auburn fans are surprised by the margin of victory in that one. But it just goes to show, the SEC, more than any other conference, you look at the division setup there, it's almost like the SEC East and the SEC West are different conferences in and of themselves. Georgia's a good team. I think people have put a little too much weight into the win over Florida, who doesn't have a coach. A little too much weight into the win over Tennessee, who doesn't have a coach. And meanwhile, Auburn's in that battle-tested SEC West division.
I agree, because the SEC East is the weakest division of the conference. No doubt about that. But with the being number one, how would a young team of Georgia handle that pressure? And they didn't handle it too well. They got smacked around. They got punked. They got bullied. And on offense, the running game was not there. We used to see Nick Chubb pounding people, but he got pounded by the Auburn defense with just 27 rushing yards, 11 carries. That's like, if you really think about it, half a yard carry. I don't know how the stats and mathematics would go, but in my opinion, I think that's like half a carry. And Auburn, after hearing about how bad they play in certain games and how their coach could get fired if he doesn't win against Georgia or Alabama, Auburn came to play Saturday, and they was at home. The crowd was into it. It was loud and energy, and they wanted to prove, like, y'all overlooking us. Okay, we'll show you how we're going to play. They play smash mouth, physical, nasty style football. Especially on offense. The offense was well balanced. The passing game was solid and good. No turnovers with the running game. Johnson leading the way, just bulldozing people over. This kid is something special. I mean, he is hard to tackle. He's probably like 230 or 240 plus with them big legs. And I'm just like, wow, he's something special. And he's not afraid to run people over. And their defense played outstanding against Georgia's offense, making them look foolish and making Jake Fromm looking like an actual freshman quarterback who didn't have turnovers. Auburn is going to have to carry that momentum over in the next couple of weeks because they have the big game in Auburn against Alabama. If Auburn beats Alabama, then they'll move on to the SEC championship game. So everything's riding for Auburn. Because if they don't beat Alabama, even though they have a winning record, that could be end for the coaching in Auburn. And Georgia has to get back to the fundamentals of football. They got to look over tape and see what they did right and what they did wrong. Live from it, move on, and go out there and just continue to play well and win out the East and get back to the SEC championship game. It could be a rematch of Auburn versus Georgia.
Could be.
So we never know about that. All right, next matchup we're going to recap is Oklahoma versus TCU in Norman, Oklahoma. Oklahoma would smack TCU around. The score of 38-20. Kenny Hill, 13 of 28, 270 yards, 1 TD. Darius Anderson, 7 rushes, 42 yards, 1 TD. Kyle Hicks, 3 catches, 71 yards, 1 TD. Total offense, 424 yards with 19 first downs. Time of possession, 25 minutes and 51 seconds with 0 turnovers. Defense, 1 sack. That's unlike TCU. Baker Mayfield, 18 of 27 for 333 yards, 3 TDs. Rodney Anderson, 23 rushes for 151 yards and 2 TDs. Rodney Anderson again, 5 catches, a buck 39 with 2 TDs. Total offense, 533 yards with 21 first downs. Time of possession, 34 minutes, 9 seconds with 0 turnovers. Defense, 2 sacks. What you think about this game?
I think we're all a little surprised by the score there. The TCU defense is a little late to the party. They did shut Oklahoma out the second half, which just kind of makes that 38 points even more impressive if you think about it. Kind of surprised TCU didn't score any more than what they did. We saw Oklahoma give up the almost 40 points to Iowa State. They gave up over 50 to Oklahoma State, and just kind of surprised they weren't able to score a little bit more.
I agree with you in that matter. But we got to give Oklahoma a lot of credit, especially on defense, because a lot of their defense has been taking so much heat and so much criticism how many yards they give up on the ground and the rushing attack. They only allowed 42 yards rushing by Darius Anderson. They played extremely well. They was able to put pressure on TCU and make the offense look one-dimensional. And so they had to force the passing game to beat them, which they did, and played to their favor. And the defensive backs did well against the TCU's good receivers. So I'm going to give it at that. But let's talk about the offense and how dynamic it is and how Baker Mayfield's that special player. Is he the front runner for the Heisman? You just might as well give it to him. So is he walking away with the Heisman so far, in your opinion?
If the season ended today, absolutely, yes. Funny, you mentioned a possible SEC rematch. The Big 12's bringing the title game back this year, too. And on that note, let's say Kerryon Johnson runs wild against Georgia, a second time around, and TCU is able to exact revenge on Oklahoma. Then you'd have to maybe say Kerryon Johnson be that Heisman favorite, a week beforehand. But Mayfield at the moment, yes.
I agree. If the season were to end today, hands down, Baker Mayfield should win the Heisman. But we give Baker Mayfield so much credit. Let's talk about this Rodney Anderson kid. I mean, almost 300 yards of total offense. Almost 300 yards. This kid was balling. He is a ground and pound machine. He runs between the tackles very well as not to scare to run people over. And he's also underrated on his speed when he runs to the outside. I mean, he's a special player in the passing game. 5 catches, 139 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, what more can you ask for him?
And he's doing it to replace Mixon and Piron from a year ago, too.
All in one player.
Mm-hmm.
So, Oklahoma is on the rising. Will this continue to go? We don't know yet. More likely it will. But depends on who plays in the Big 12 matchup tournament against Oklahoma. We'll have to find out and see. Alright, the last matchup we're going to recap is Notre Dame versus Miami. Miami would throw Notre Dame 41-8. Brandon Wimbush, 10 of 21, 119 yards, 1 TD, along with some interceptions. John Adams, 10 rushes, 40 yards. Equanimous St. Brown, 3 catches, 68 yards. Total offense, 261 yards with 13 first downs. Time of possession, 26 minutes and 1 second with 4 turnovers. Defense, 0 sacks. Malik Roser, 15 of 24, a buck 37, 1 TD. Travis Homer, 18 rushes for 146 yards. Lawrence Cager, 2 catches, 45 yards. Total offense, 374 yards. with 18 first down time of possession, 33 minutes, 59 seconds with 0 turnovers. Defense 5 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 3 interception, and 1 interception for a touchdown. So what did you think about this game?
Didn't see that one coming. I thought it was going to be maybe a touchdown either way.
Mm-hmm.
And the big thing about Miami is they were able to turn every Notre Dame turnover into touchdowns.
Exactly, especially with that pick six. This freshman corner that Miami has, a true freshman. He's going to be something special. The turnover chain game. I mean, this swagger starting getting back on the defense. I really like their defensive coordinator, Danny Ramirez. He challenged the defensive players to step up this week, and they rose up to the challenge. I mean, this program is starting to turn around from last year to this year. I mean, you just starting to see the progressions.
Longest winning streak in the country.
So far, yes, it is. And Notre Dame, where the hell was Notre Dame? Their offensive line got beat up. They were supposed to be the projecting offensive line to draft, and they got beat by a bunch of true freshmen on the defensive line. That is sad.
Notre Dame's a play from ahead team. They're not really a very good. Some teams, I don't know, Clemson, Oklahoma, they fall behind a couple scores. They're okay, but Notre Dame's not one of them teams.
Yeah, Notre Dame is the type of team that they're built to lead, but not built to come from behind.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they had that close loss against Georgia, but this loss, it pretty much puts them out of the college playoff hunt. They didn't show up. They had too many interceptions. Even the backup quarterback threw an interception, almost was a touchdown. I mean, they just looked at loss in Miami. Miami came to play after being throttled last year in South Bend. Miami was like, this time we are at home. We're going to dethrone you, and we're going to beat you down, punch you in the mouth. And that's what happens. So with this win, making Miami 12-0, 13-0, something like that, is the U officially back?
After what they did to Virginia Tech the week before, you almost have to say so, yeah.
I would say that too, but not just yet. I want to get back on the bandwagon, but they still have to beat Clemson in the ACC championship game and dethrone them. Because if they can and make it to the college playoff, win there and win the national championship, no doubt the U is back. Offensively, they did a good job. They ain't beating themselves. They took what the defense gave them. And the running game where Travis Homer is something special. He runs between the tackles with no fear. He is a thumper. And his speed is good as well. But the defense stole the show. I mean, the defense had more yards than the offense, just say it that way. So, the U looking good, and they keep rolling. But against Virginia, let's see if it's a trap game. Alright, that would do it with the first part of the debate. When we get back, we're going to get into the college football playoff rankings that just came out this week, right here, only on Gameball College Football Podcast Gameball College Football Podcast, where the football season never ends. What's happening, everyone? Welcome back to Gameball College Kickoff Podcast, where the football season never ends. Excuse me, I do apologize for saying Gameball NFL End Zone Podcast. It was saying Gameball College Football Kickoff Podcast. So let's get started to it. We're going to be talking about the college football playoff rankings that recently came out on Tuesday, with number 1, Alabama, number 2, Clemson, number 3, Miami, number 4, Oklahoma, Did the committee get it right for now?
For now, yes. They left themselves plenty of wiggle room. They got Wisconsin sitting pretty, even though they're on the outside looking in. It's presumed they'll move in there. Should Clemson or Miami, one of those teams you would assume will get knocked out. You would assume the reward, Auburn should they get a win over Alabama in a few weeks. So agree or disagree, they left themselves plenty of flexibility.
I agree with that. Then you have number 5 Auburn with the big win over Georgia, putting them over undefeated. Wisconsin, which is number 6. So Wisconsin wins out. If they run the table, win out. In my opinion, they should be in the college football playoff. It's not their fault they got the schedule that they got, but with a quality big win over Iowa, and let's see how they win against Michigan and Minnesota. So if they win out with those games and plus the Big Ten championship game, then you have a conversation to where Wisconsin is deserving to get in the college football playoff. The Pac-12 is done. They're not in the conversation anymore. Pretty much everybody has 2 losses. So
And Notre Dame.
yeah, exactly. You have to look at Notre Dame's loss with 2 losses as well, especially that ball loss against Miami. That hurt them really bad. So you have to put them in the equation. You also have Oklahoma run the table right now as the Big 12 leader so far, and going to the conference championship. Who they'll play, I don't know. And will they win? I don't know. So it's going to be a bunch of chaos coming. Then you have Miami versus Clemson. We're suspecting if Clemson wins, they're in. If Miami wins, they're in. But the SEC part is get kind of tricky. So you got Auburn winning. If they win their last few games and win the SEC championship game, they have 2 losses being SEC champions. They're in. That's well deserved. Now you have Alabama with 1 loss. Should 1 loss Alabama team be in, even though they didn't win their conference, over Wisconsin, who won their conference? Let's just assume it.
Only way I see Alabama getting left out of the playoff is Miami finishes undefeated, Wisconsin finishes undefeated, and Auburn and Oklahoma both win out. I think that's your 4. Should those 4 teams win out from here on out, that's probably your final. Every other scenario presented has Alabama in the championship, or at least in the Final Four.
Exactly. So Alabama should not be in with the 1 loss, because last year Ohio State won the 1 loss, but then when their conference had no business being there and got throttled by Clemson. I think it was scored 31-0 or 35-0, one of those 2 scores, and got thrown. And the committee looked foolish for that. So do yourself a favor, committee. Stop being scared of the competition. You know you love TV ratings and all that, but if Wisconsin wins, they should be in. No questions asked, no if, ands, or but. Point blank, period. They are winning, deserving to be in over a 1 loss Alabama. Now, this always plays in a role. Politics, schedule, resume. You have to look at Wisconsin. It's not their fault they got a soft schedule, but they got harder teams coming up. Then you got Alabama, who hasn't really played nobody, but look what conference they're in the SEC West division. Then you also have other teams in the equation. You also have Mississippi State, who gave Alabama a run for their money, about lost that game. So we'll see in the upcoming weeks.
And that's telling too, because Mississippi State wasn't anywhere near the same stratosphere that Georgia or Auburn was in separate games against them. I can't remember the Georgia score offhand. Auburn beat them 49-10, and Georgia beat them by something very similar to that.
So we'll just see in the upcoming weeks. It's going to be wild goose chase. Chaos is going to be flying. But the committee needs to do right this time. If Wisconsin wins undefeated, they should be in over a 1-loss Alabama team. That's assuming if scenario plays out like that. We don't know, but we'll see upcoming weeks, because Auburn has a cakewalk next week. I forgot what team they.
Louisiana Monroe.
Excuse me, this Saturday, playing them. Then you have the big game coming up, the Iron Bowl rivalry, the most hatred rivalry in the SEC, Auburn versus Alabama. So we'll see if Auburn can win that home game. If Auburn can win that home game, then they'll be in the SEC championship game against Georgia coming out the East more likely. And if Auburn wins, they'll be in it. In my opinion, number one loss, Alabama should not be in. Alright, that will do it for the second part of the debate. When we come back, we're going to get into week 12 of this college football season, matchups and predictions right here only on Gameball College Kickoff Podcast, where the football season never ends. What's happening, everyone? Welcome back to Gameball College Kickoff Podcast, where the football season never ends. We're going to get to the final topic debate of this segment. We're going to get to the matchups and prediction coming up for Week 12. Michigan versus Wisconsin, Virginia versus Miami, Kentucky versus Georgia, Kansas State versus Oklahoma State. Break down Michigan versus Wisconsin matchup.
Oh, we talked about Wisconsin, the previous segments, how much they still had to play for. Michigan, they have to win at Wisconsin, and they have to win at home against Ohio State the following week, and they still need Penn State to drop a game to have a shot at the Big East championship. So that they have an equal amount to play for from a conference perspective as Wisconsin does.
Agreed. If Wisconsin could duplicate what they did last week against Iowa, they'll be fine. But Wisconsin quarterback has to be careful because they're going up against a better defense with better corners, especially for Michigan. So if the quarterback could just take what the defense gives him, it's not going to hurt him to throw checkdowns every once in a while. If the pass is not there, they run for a few yards here or there. Keep the chains moving, keep the clock running, keep the Michigan offense on the sideline. Speaking of Michigan offense, the quarterback is their Achilles heel of that offense. It's been space injuries. Then you have another quarterback that's now played his potential. Then you have another quarterback that's coming to the game. So which quarterback plays, they have to do good against Wisconsin defense that can play some ball. If I'm Wisconsin defense, I'll be mixing up a little bit, bring some blitzes, dime patch, blitz here and there, do some disguises. Force the young quarterback to make a mistake and feed off a turnover. So if you do that, you could be able to do repeat of what happened against Iowa out in this game. So Wisconsin should be able to take advantage of that. All right, next matchup: Virginia versus Miami. How you like this matchup?
Another game at the Orange Bowl. Not going to be a nighttime kick. Kansas getting 19 points. Virginia had a real impressive win at Boise State in the non-con. Really hasn't been highlighted by much else though. Kind of got thumped in a non-con game against Indiana. They've been an up and down squad for the most part this year, but same for that Boise State game. They've kind of won the games they should and lost the games they should as well. I don't think Miami struggles with them any this weekend.
I don't think so either, but be careful because this could be a trap game for Miami. Come off the big win over Notre Dame. Everybody's getting their confidence going up and all that, especially with the turnover chain game on defense. This could be a trap game where Virginia can really come to play, can sneak in there and beat you. So you have to refocus and get over that big win and not have that hangover, because if you have that hangover, one costly mistake could turn out in this game with a loss. So Miami has to keep doing what they're doing on offense, continue to be consistent, be balanced, run the ball effectively, get some good completions, and Malik Roser has to be able to go through his progressions, as I was alluding to with the Wisconsin quarterback. and don't throw it to double coverage because he has the tendency of throwing to double coverages and be pickings for him. So he has to throw it to checkdowns. If it's not there, run for first down. This kid can run good as well. So use go through your reads and see your options was out there. And the defense just continued to be that turnover chain gang defense, that style defense we're accustomed to seeing. So if Miami can do that, they can win at home big.
Miami has played down to the competition this year. Florida State, North Carolina, Georgia Tech, all one-possession games.
Exactly. So they'll have to be able to be focused in this game because Virginia is not no slouch team we're talking about. They can play some good football, but the best of them, you're going to give their all. So Miami has to be focused and play great.
And not only one-possession games, they had to score a touchdown with 2 seconds to go to beat Florida State, and they had to kick a field goal at the gun to beat Georgia Tech.
Exactly. So if they can repeat of what happened, then they keep rolling. All right, next matchup, Kentucky versus Georgia. I kind of feel sorry for Kentucky because they're going to be playing a pissed-off Georgia team that got annihilated by Auburn. So what do you like about this matchup?
Kentucky's a little bit better. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Kentucky this year. They 3 losses. They had that so close game to beating Florida. However, 30 became 31 against them. And then the Mississippi schools both beat them this year too. You mentioned the hangover Georgia will be coming off of. I think the Cats can hang in there for a half.
I agree, but that defense of Georgia that we're accustomed to seeing is going to come back and play that defense against Kentucky because Kentucky caught Georgia at the wrong time, especially coming off a blowout loss, and everybody's going to be pissed off, want to take some anger and frustration out. They're going to take it out on Kentucky. I'm surprised that there ain't going to be some unsportsmanlike penalties, whatever, in this game, but Georgia has to control their emotions. If they can control their emotions as you continue to play good football, they'll get a blowout win over Kentucky.
Expect a one-score game by half.
I will look forward to that. All right, last matchup we're going to talk about is Kansas State versus Oklahoma State. Break it down for me.
Surprised to see Kansas State being 20-point underdogs at Stillwater. Over the years, they even again in the games they've lost to Oklahoma State, they've been very competitive.
Be like a 4-point or 7-point game.
Exactly, yeah. And I believe last time they went to Stillwater, Oklahoma State had scored their last possession of the game there. And you also look at common opponents here. Kansas State, both teams lost to Oklahoma this year. K-State actually, as far as the final score goes, was a little bit more closer finish. I believe they only lost by a touchdown versus the 10 points that OSU lost by. And they also able to still hang 35 of them at the same time, too. So I'm expecting a lot of points in this one. It won't be 62-52 because Kansas State does a little bit better job of they're not the quick strike offense that Oklahoma is. And so they'll be able to time of possession, fewer possessions, lower score. But it should be a 30-something to 30-something game, I assume.
I agree. But the challenges for K-State is their secondary to cover Oklahoma State's receivers. Now, they can blow, and they have some playmakers, especially Washington. He's real physical. He has speed, and he can beat you, and he can get behind you. So Kansas State has to be able to keep everything in front of him, the secondary, and the front seven has to be able to come and produce. So far this season, their front seven hasn't been as dominant as we see in the past. But if they can be a dominant force and give Oklahoma State offensive front some trouble and cause Mason Rudolph to have confusion, then it will be good for K-State defense. It will keep them in the game. But the offense has to come alive because last few games I noticed the offense has been struggling. And the running game has to be a factor in this game. They have to be a run-first team. Every now and then you can catch them slipping with some passes here and there, but their bread and butter is to run. You have to be physical with the running game. Wear out that Oklahoma State defense because their defense has not been consistent and they're giving up a lot of yards, especially in close games, and they do not finish. So if I'm Kansas State, run the ball heavy, wear them down, and take advantage of the play action option pass with a tight end over the middle or Pringle with the post route. So if you can do that, it'll be a very close game in case they can walk out with the win being bowl eligible. Alright, that will do it for the matchups. Our favorite part, the predictions. Michigan versus Wisconsin. Who you got?
I'm going to go Wisconsin 21-10 in this one. Then you get an early 7-0 lead in the first quarter. Probably 14-10 at halftime. They'll take on the second half touchdown. Defense will stay strong. 21-10 Badgers.
I agree with you. I'm going to go even further. I'm going to go 35-17 Wisconsin. It's just Michigan's offense and the quarterback has been inconsistent, and that's their downfall for the last few years. That's been keeping them out of the Big Ten championship. And their defense is going to play well for parts of the game, but I see Wisconsin being too physical and outmatching Michigan. So for those reasons, I'm picking Wisconsin to win 35-17. All right, next matchup. Virginia versus Miami. Who you like?
I wouldn't be surprised if Miami comes out a little sluggish that first half. Then they'll have going for them in addition to home field. They got that old Orange Bowl crowd back. You mentioned earlier how Virginia just has to possibly make that one play to score an upset. Miami just has to make that one play, especially in the third quarter, get that old late 80s, early 90s Orange Bowl crowd that's been revived. They get that one turnover, that 180-yard touchdown, that one big play in the third quarter. Crowd comes alive and the route is on. I'm going to say Miami 38-20.
I'm going to go with a close game as you as well. I'm going to say the defense makes a turnover play, and that's going to be their formula. The defense has to step up against this Virginia offense, and Miami's offense has to step up to capitalize on Virginia's defense. You have to play mistake-free on offense against Virginia's defense, because if you don't, they can take advantage of that. They can turn to points over turnover. So I'm going to say Miami wins this one, a very close one. You said 2 point, I'm going to say 3. 27-24 Miami at home with a defensive turnover at the end. All right, Kentucky versus Georgia. Who you got?
I think Georgia wins. They're at home. They are the better team of the two. They'll have a sluggish first half, probably a 20-14 or in that range score at halftime. They'll go on to win 41-20.
Sorry, Kentucky fans, you're bowl eligible, but you caught Georgia at the wrong time. I'm going to say 45-17. Georgia over Kentucky. Last matchup, Kansas State versus Oklahoma State. Who you got?
K-State scores. They don't score enough. Oklahoma State 45-35.
I'm going to say Oklahoma State 45-30. It's too much firepower for the Oklahoma State offense for Kansas State defense to handle. It'll be a close first part of the game, but I can see Mason Rudolph get into the rhythm and be on fire with the running game, and the offense be able to wear down Oklahoma State's, the offense be able to wear down Kansas State defense. For those reasons, I'll say the score of 45-20. All right, that will do it for this week's edition of College Gameball NFL, Gameball College Kickoff Podcast. Social media, you can follow me at Facebook, Gameball College Kickoff Podcast, / Gameball NFL End Zone. Twitter, you can follow me all caps, GAMBALL, that's Gameball_NYKE. You can also email me at gck.gnfl@gmail.com. Also, YouTube, like, subscribe, leave a comment. gck.gnfltv. Your social media?
Find me on Facebook under my given name, Luke Hartnett. I'm also on Twitter at I am Luke Hartnett.
All right, that will do it. I'm Michael Riley.
And I'm Luke.
By saying, have a safe, blessed night, and be good. This is Gameball College Kickoff Podcast, where the football season never ends. Peace. We are out.